And while we're waiting for somebody to come forward, let me just make note for the record that the council and I did receive an email from Margaret Dibble, whose correspondence is relatively short, so it doesn't explicitly say support the ordinance, so let me just read it. Dear City Council members and Mayor Cheney, a lot of places on town need better bike parking. Lack of good bike parking causes people to either not ride bicycles or to park their bicycles in unsuitable places, which annoys bicyclists and non-bicyclists alike. Good bicycle parking is especially needed in multifamily developments. Judging by the places where my children have lived, where bikes block hallways and walkways, are damaged by being parked outside, exposed to the weather, and generally have to be parked in inconvenient places. People who have to carry their bicycles down 3 flights are less likely to ride than people who have safe, convenient places to park their bicycles. Thank you for doing something to improve bicycle parking in Moscow. And it's signed Margaret Dibble. Is there other testimony tonight in support of the proposed ordinance?
Philip Cook, 804 Eisenhower Street. I also serve on the Transportation Commission, so I'm quite familiar with the ordinance, and I would encourage you to approve the ordinance. I think bicycle parking is a relatively small investment that I think pays big dividends both for businesses and the community. I think the more we can do to encourage trips by bike, and I think adequate and secure parking does that, I think the better off we'll be in several ways. Whether that's economically, cycling is economical both for the cyclists and I also think for the community, as if we can encourage people to switch trips from cars to cycling. Less wear and tear on our roads, less congestion, less need for costly expansions of the roadway. The Community Development Director cited our 2000 census statistics. Just last month, the American Community Survey from the Census Bureau came out, and we've seen between 2000 and 2010, we saw a 28% increase in the journey to work by bike. So I think there's a rising need for bike parking, and those of us who regularly get around by bike, I think we're seeing more and more bikes out. Perhaps not on a night like tonight, but still. Although they may seem overly specific, I think I'm glad to see standards for racks in here. There are poorly designed racks on the market, and it's unfortunate when I see a business owner proudly show me their racks, and I have to smile and say, and say thanks for parking. But if we have some standards that really provide adequate and secure parking, it'll keep businesses from investing money in racks that are sometimes rather useless. I encourage you to keep the covered parking requirement. This is one place where motor vehicles and bikes differ. We don't have that protection from the elements, and like tonight, we get precipitation in Moscow about half the days of the year, and so having a place where you can shelter your bike, I think, helps encourage trips by bike. Earlier tonight, I heard you express support for transportation options in the form of public transit. I encourage you to help improve another viable option by adopting the bike parking ordinance before you tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask a question for Phil.
For the record? Okay. Excuse me just a moment. We have a council member with a specific question for Philip Cook, and he wants it on the record, so...
Yeah, this is on the record, Phil, and this is only because you're head of the Transportation Commission. So
okay.
Not anymore. No, Nancy Nelson's
well, Nancy is, but you're close. Anyway, the question being.
Thanks, Nancy.
I hope I can answer.
Sorry, Nancy. When you're discussing this in transportation, was there any dialogue with the business community relative to bicycle parking? Contractors, builders, business owners, what they felt about it?
Not that I recall. No, sir.
Thank you.
Is there other testimony in support of the proposed ordinance?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Jerry Long. I live at 2275 Henry Court, and I'm here in support of the ordinance. I should acknowledge this is pure coincidence that my tie happens to have bicycles on it. I am a cyclist, both a commuter and an avid recreational cyclist, but I'm here today more as a member of the community that's concerned broadly with Moscow's continuing economic vitality. And I think that this is part of what, a small part perhaps, but part of what can be considered a broader effort by the city in economic development. Any community, regardless of where it is, has two options, and only two options. We can either keep money here, money that goes elsewhere to purchase goods and services that are produced elsewhere. This is called import replacement. Or we can bring money here. We can bring money here in the form of goods and services that are produced here and then sold elsewhere. That means that, and that is the most relevant form of economic development at issue today. That is, we must attract export-creating businesses that choose to be here, even though they don't have to be here. So how do we do that? There are tools that any community can use and that we use. But the most important tools are those that make this a place people want to live. There's a wide array of both academic and public policy research that is supported by common sense that demonstrate that the most important factors considered by both residents and businesses in determining where to locate are the cultural, natural, and social amenities in a community. These include things like bike paths, parks, the quality of education, and in this case, bicycle parking, places to go. In short, and this is obvious, and this is the common sense component, people live and businesses locate in places they like, in the places they find attractive. They live where they want to live. And so what that means is our best economic development tool is the ability to create a unique, vibrant, and attractive community. Parks, open space, multi-use trails, all the things we have, as well as comfortable places to ride, right places to ride from, and places to ride to. Downtown, the farmer's market, anybody who's chosen to ride to the farmer's market, I of course know that this ordinance would not apply there, but has had difficulty finding places to park their bike. People like transportation options. People like the option of choosing to ride rather than simply being forced to drive in their car. Now I know, and this concern has been expressed, there are individual effects. There are effects this ordinance would have on specific landowners. But we must remember that the value of a specific parcel of a business or a house or a multifamily development is a function simply of demand. And demand is a function of a community's attractiveness. The more attractive the community is, the more resources it has, the more amenities it has, the more the value of all land uses, both business and commercial, increase. In closing, we all know that Moscow is an incredibly beautiful place. I've lived here now for 4 years. I'm an Idaho native and came back to Idaho in part because I wanted to live in Moscow. Moscow is a unique, beautiful place, and this ordinance and ordinances like it promote those qualities. Continue to make Moscow an attractive place for businesses to locate, for residents to locate, for students to attend the university. And for those reasons, I encourage the council to adopt the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify in support of the proposed ordinance?
My name is Nancy Nelson, and I live at 804 East E Street, and I chair the transportation at this time. It was a pleasure to work on the ordinance with the commission. It felt like a very thoughtful process, and I try to take as pragmatic a view as I can in anything that we do that changes the system. And I know that without bicycle parking, what happens within the system of how bicyclists use facilities is bikes get leaned against walls and they get attached to trees. And I think the best way to solve that problem is to provide appropriate parking in the same way that we provide it for other transportation methods. And I believe encouraging bicycling is a way to make the best use of our resources in both the broadest sense and a specific sense. I urge you to approve it.
Thank you. Nancy, just a moment. Walter looks like he has a question that he'd like included in the record.
A question for you, Nancy, if I may. I think you may be the one that's most aware of this. The current bicycle parking at the Moscow schools,
Yes.
is it of the type that's required by this ordinance?
It is not at the high school, at least on 3rd Street. It might be on the back. I'm not sure.
I have no knowledge of any of them, so.
What I'm doing is I'm running through the schools in my head, and I can't think of any that are. I could easily be wrong. There's enough school sites that there could be some appropriate racks out there, but the racks I have used at schools have not been conforming it.
If I may, are they what I probably had as a child, the freestanding metal rack all tied together with wheeled slots?
Mm-hmm. Some are even less than that. Some are simply a pipe that has feet that stand.
Okay.
I was mentioning that people will attach bikes to things inappropriately, and rails are often used at the schools. I personally have used some handrails, and there's a chain link fence that gets used too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam.
Yes.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Mayor. I presume then that none of them are covered, or a percentage of them are not covered. Are you aware of any covered bike racks within the school district?
Not to my knowledge, no. There may be some awning areas where people do park their bikes, and people may have made arrangements in their schools. When I ride my bike to school, which is actually in Pullman, I bring it inside. So some of that may be happening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Are there others here tonight who'd like to testify in support of the proposed ordinance?
Good evening. My name is T.J. Clevenger, 1875 Carmichael. I also am the business owner of Paradise Creek Bicycles, downtown Moscow. I'm an avid cyclist. I actually recognize most everybody here. I would really like to encourage you guys to approve this. I want to share some insights maybe that you asked a little bit about for the local business community perspective on this. As a business owner, one of the primary concerns that students and parents share when they come into my business is that they live in these dorms. They have limited bicycle parking outside if they can even find it. They're going to tie it to trees, posts. They're going to have their bikes hauled away by the university. There is no real place for them to contribute to the cycling community. Most of you guys, my guess is that you guys would already know that this is one of the nicest places to ride a bike. We have exceptionally good community standards when it comes to that, but you're lacking a few things, like covered parking is huge, for students. I have customers who come in and they say, I would love to buy a $700 to $1,000 bike because I think this is going to be really nice, for my lifestyle, but I'm not going to leave it outside the dorms. So from a business perspective, that kind of hurts a little bit. These kids, they would like to become more avid cyclists and participants in the lifestyle, but they don't have the space to do that. And so it needs to be bicycle parking across the board. I understand that there are some other opportunities, a grant as well that's coming in, and so I would like to encourage you guys very strongly to support this ordinance.
CJ, are you willing to field a question? Looks like Walter Steve
has
one
questions
for
as
you.
you guys would like.
If I may, Madam Mayor, probably a question of Bill to clarify what I believe I just heard from Mr. Clevenger. This does not apply to the university dorms.
That's correct.
So I understand your point, but the ordinance as I read it, and I think as Bill explained it, would not fit the circumstance you just described.
Okay, so for that,
unfortunately.
Okay, I did not understand that, but to that regard, if we get a step in the right direction, give them a place to park their bikes off campus, and coming to use the businesses downtown, I just think that that's certainly a good step in the right direction.
I just didn't want to leave that misconception out there.
Yeah. But thank you for clarifying that, Walter. I didn't understand that.
Thank you. Is there other testimony in support of the proposed ordinance?
This is kind of cool. Okay. My name's Mccabe, 522 East East Street. I'm a junior at the high school, and those the comments about the high school bike parking kind of was like, this is a good idea. It's a good idea. I mean, I don't ride my bike often. Part of the reason is that it's been stolen several times. Either at school or at my home, but it's been stolen a couple of times at school, and basically just because we didn't have adequate parking. I know for the high school we do have limited parking on 3rd Street entrance, the front entrance right there, right in front of by the classrooms, really. My English teacher could stick her head out the window and there's the bike parking right there. As in the back, I'm pretty sure they don't have any whatsoever. I know at the junior high, they have a little squared off section between the multi-purpose room and the music room on the outside where that's where their bike racks are. There's no covering, but it's just got rows and rows of racks. So I would think this would be definitely a great thing to have for the educational community, for the junior high and the high school, because you would get a lot more people riding their bikes, having a safe way to put it, lock it up, after school they take it and ride it home. So that's what I have to say about it.
Thank you. We appreciate your input. Is there other testimony?
Madam Mayor, Nils Peterson, 841 Travoy. I am a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I'm not speaking in that capacity tonight. I am speaking in my capacity as Vice Chair of the Palouse Prairie School, a charter school on South Main. We opened the school in 2009 with a 5 bike rack parking under a covered awning. At the time, the school enrollment was just over 60, so by the standards of the ordinance, we were very close with 10 parking stalls to meeting the requirements. Maybe we needed 12 stalls instead of 5 racks, 6 racks. Palouse Prairie will probably be the first organization, which is both a public school and a small business, to be impacted by this ordinance, because we are in the process of expanding to 7th and 8th grade and to develop a conditional use permit to allow that expansion. In the process, we're going to need to answer the bicycle parking elements, which will be newly imposed if you adopt this tonight, which is what I'm here to encourage. We currently have the 5 racks, as I mentioned. Given our expansion, I expect we will need 12 racks. Mr. Brown knows quite well that that's a very constrained site, and it will be challenging to find a place to add the additional 7 racks. But I'm committed to that, and I'm committed to that for this reason. In the fall of 2009, when we had the right number of racks for the enrollment, given the current standard, there were times when that loading dock was just strewn with bicycles. Bicycles tied to the racks, bicycles tied to bicycles, bicycles with trailers. I was pleased to see that we had lots of ridership, but it was a problematic situation. So we need at least the number of racks that the ordinance requires. I think it will be a challenge, but I don't want to say it will be burdensome. It's something that I think we want to accomplish. It's within the vision of the school for how children should be able to access the school. And so I'm here to urge your adoption of the ordinance tonight, recognizing its implications for our organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Is there other testimony in support of the proposed ordinance?
Madam Cheney and council members, Sherry Matlin, 410 North Blaine Street. And I am an advocate for passing this, is it an ordinance? I'm not sure. As a couple of the people brought up, such as TJ, back to campus, there are the sororities and fraternities that are private areas, and this would help to provide parking for the students there. And as TJ also mentioned, it's true, and I don't know if that would happen at the sororities and fraternities, but if a student hooks their bike to a tree on campus, it will be ticketed and then removed, and so they pay a fine for doing that. So maybe they wouldn't do it at a fraternity or sorority, but I don't know if they would distinguish between that. But if this ordinance was passed and fraternities and sororities did have proper bike facilities, especially covered ones, perhaps it would be a good example for the rest of the university. And then just from my own experience, I'm really thrilled to see that they talk about covered parking. I ride my bike to work all year round, and my bike is parked out. I rode it here tonight, and it was very interesting to see that with the limited bike parking that you have outside here, even in this weather, it was full. So I think that shows that there's a need even here at the courthouse. So anyway, I am an advocate for passing this. Thank you.
Somebody has a question, Tim?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Matlin? Matlin, thank you. I wanted to point out that if the ordinance does succeed tonight, that the existing uses, i.e. the fraternities and sororities that you brought up, will not have to provide the bike racks or the covered and lit areas unless the use of the physical plant changes so significantly that it would require it. It only applies to new structures. And if a new fraternity or sorority came on the Idaho campus, they would have to do it.
And that's true also of anything.
Any use.
Any usage. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Right, thank you.
Thanks. Are there others who would like to testify tonight?
David Pierce, 716 East F Street. As long as we're talking about the situation on the university campus, even though we cannot do anything about it, we can at least let the university know that there are people who are concerned about parking on the campus. My observation is that in the last 2 years, the number of people who are riding to campus has increased greatly, at least 100% in the last 2 years. The result of this is that in the spring and the fall, it gets to the point where you cannot find an allowable place to park your bicycle and lock it. Yes, it is true that if you lock your bike to a tree or to any of the other posts or things around there, they can ticket you. I don't know whether they are doing that or not. I've seen things in the Argonaut suggesting that this can be done. It's a little disconcerting when you know there was a bicycle rack in front of a building and it's taken out so that they can do some reconstruction work on the building, and then they don't replace the bike rack when they get done with the construction. I know that has happened. I hope the university realizes that they've got a problem if they want people using bicycles to get to campus, and that they need to provide more spaces where you can park a bicycle. The only place I know that you can get sheltered parking on the university campus is at the library. And there are very few spaces there that you can get under anything, and they are coveted. If you don't get there by 9 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to get one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there other testimony in support of the proposed ordinance? Is there testimony in opposition or general testimony?
Stephen Hacker, Executive Director, Moscow Chamber of Commerce, 411 South Main Street. Madam Mayor, council members, for the record, this is just general commentary, just in case anyone was wondering. What the commentary that we want to provide, and certainly looking at this ordinance and hearing all the commentary about how we do need parking, and I'm acutely aware of that. At 411 South Main Street, we get lots of bikes propped up against the building and leaning against the trees, and we know that there is a need for parking. What we're most concerned about, or what we want to relate to the council today, is anytime there's a blanket ordinance that looks at commercial development, I think, and it's a failing on our part as well, not having representation for developers, and I think Councilman Krause brought it up, not having them there to provide input about cost structures, we may have missed a real opportunity there to bring people in. When you look at a blanket ordinance that covers all commercial development, we know that there are different users, different types of businesses, different type of employees from the east to the north to the south to the west and right in the central business district. And again, we may have missed an opportunity to bring developers in to say, how do we make this a competitive advantage in future development, and how do we incorporate that into cost structures? And I think that's probably the biggest concern, and that's our general commentary. I really believe that we need additional parking throughout. I think that we can, based on some of the commentary, lead by example in our commercial development. However, we do need to look at incorporating those commentaries into this process so that we can better serve those that are looking to develop, to provide those amenities, to encourage future development, future use, and future movers. I did want to comment and recognize Bill Belknap and his staff and all the city staff. A great presentation, really cleared it up. Those examples they provide give us a very clear picture of how that would impact certain types of commercial business. But wanted to provide that commentary and certainly show appreciation for the staff and all the great work there. They're just a great representation for our city and do a wonderful job to keep us informed. Thank you.
Thank you.